Bienvenidos a Vox Terra. And if you have not done so, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and you've clicked that notification bell. Today, I want to share with you an important Senate resolution sponsored by Senator Heinrich out of New Mexico, who's also a member of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. And he and 14 other Democrats co-sponsored the Electrifying America's Future resolution, which seeks to advance widespread electrification of appliances in American homes and businesses. Now you might say to yourself, how did I come across this here resolution? And you might ask yourself, why did it jump out at me? Why did I think it's important, and why do I think it's important that you are aware of it as well, and that you support it and speak up for it? Well, here's why. I've heard the environmental organizations speak about the need for electrification, especially the Sierra Club. And the idea here with electrification is that by doing so, by electrifying our machinery, our vehicles, our appliances, our furnaces, and so on, we can get away from that dependence on fossil fuels. And that will achieve two things or more. One, the potential for us to drastically cut back the amount of greenhouse gases we're adding to our environment. Because that potential is there to run these machines on renewable and, relatively speaking, clean energy sources. And two, improve our air quality and water quality and safety, all concerns of the environmental movement before climate change was such a pressing issue. Whenever you breathe in that auto exhaust, you're breathing in particulate matters and carcinogens like benzene. Running natural gas, well, you got to frack the gas to get it, and there's often chemicals involved, hazardous toxic chemicals involved in that, contaminating our waters. There's a methane releasing of using the natural gas, the heat trapping gas. But there's also, when you're burning it, there's nitrous oxide. There's the risk of explosions and leaks and carbon monoxide poisoning. People really die of that every year. Now, depending on the appliance and the machine, electricity, running an electric motor can be more energy efficient than running an internal combustion one. This is true in the case of automobiles, citing the Department of Energy studies. But also our homes could be generally heated and cooled using what are called heat pump technology. Geothermal is key and most understandable, but there's also air source heat pumps. Now, how did you hear about this here Electrify America resolution, you ask me? Well, I heard about it when I was looking at where the environmental groups stand on the reconciliation, budget, and infrastructure and Build Back Better packages that are trying to be pushed through the Congress now. Specifically, it was the Sierra Club that drew my attention to it. And specifically, Senator Heinrich claims that this electrification will be the fastest and surest way to get us towards reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, as well as improve that air quality and create lots of jobs. Now, before we get into some of the specifics of Senator Heinrich's resolution, I just want to point out you may object, or others may object. The cost, the price, the cost, the price. To that I say, au contraire, mon frère, because remember, this entire economy is entirely subsidized. Tax abatements, tax grants, but also those things called market externalities, meaning the cost of pollution is pushed off onto the public. So really, we should think of all of this trying to be green, not as an extra subsidy, but as switching subsidies from poisoning ourselves to a cleaner, less toxic, less greenhouse gas-laden economy. Well, as for some of these specifics, electrifying the activities of high-emission sectors, construction, transportation, and industry. Expanding interregional transmission capacity. Well, what does that mean? That's a way to make the grid more reliable, more stable, and more conducive towards renewable energy by connecting here to there, as well as promoting resiliency in the face of climate change. Improving manufacturing capacity of zero-emission electrification. So here we would be talking about improving domestic manufacturing. Now, some folks may come to that from a jingoistic or a nationalistic attitude. I do not. I come at it from a buy local, so there's less shipping of products around and less energy being consumed by making what you need more locally and more locally sourced. increasing the available financing for zero-emission electrification at the utility scale, individual homes and businesses. So by increasing financing, what we're talking about here is I would consider it as solving some of those market externalities, some of that problem with, well, this stuff seems so expensive. I would love to get a geothermal heat pump, but then I got to pay to dig these wells. Well, is that really fair when others are not paying the cost of their more polluting technologies? So this is a way to help us average people, average business owners, or non-average ones for that matter, I assume, afford these technologies. Investing in energy efficiency programs, hence the more efficient use of our power, expanding vocational training and certification programs, targeted to also include lower income and people of color. Now, the people of color and lower income aspect, focusing on that from a messaging standpoint, is a sword that cuts both directions, more towards the good than the bad. It's important to make everyone feel included and a part of the green energy revolution, because one of the main talking points against environmentalism in general for years has been, oh, well, it's just an elitist, rich white people thing. I have heard that criticism. So this is an excellent way to counter that. But I believe it's very important to make these programs, these benefits, these incentives available for everyone, regardless of where they are on the income level. Once you start to divvy up who gets and who doesn't get, who qualifies and who doesn't qualify, resentment starts to build in. Facilitating the modernization of codes, federal, state, and local, to facilitate zero-emission technologies. Now, when we talk about codes, that's very interesting because codes, municipal level especially, tend to be off everyone's radar. But that's really where a lot of the environmentally hindering action occurs. Think about the neighborhood you live in, what you're allowed and not allowed to do. Some of which there's valid reasons for, but people could look into it to how do we solve that objection. But some of it is really just based on what's ideas people have in their heads of what a neighborhood should look like. Investing in it, ensuring that the rural areas and the tribes receive full access towards zero-emission electrification, both through combining them with the larger power grids to ensure that power supply, but also encouraging what are called microgrids and distributed renewable technologies, meaning local power generation. Well, now, what about the waste? The wastefulness of things like solar panels. What do you do with them? How do you recycle them? Batteries, store for storage. That's an issue. I agree. I'm generally a reuse kind of person, going back to that original environmental movement. But the problem with recycling in our society is throughout the entire society, a lack of focus on true and good recycling and a lack of focus on true and good reusing. Well, luckily this resolution also has a provision for that. Investing in research, development, and demonstration on the efficient use, recycling, and waste management of materials used in clean energy technologies. And lastly, I'm going to highlight for you that Senator Heinrich in his press release mentions the need to increase public understanding and awareness of the health impacts of indoor and outdoor pollution created by fossil fuel appliances and electric generation. Now, one interesting one coming on the radar now is the knowledge that burning of natural gas within the home can create its own air contaminants, like nitrous oxide. And messaging is really key to all change in the United States and elsewhere. The American Gas Association and other lobbyists have lots of money to spend, and often cloaking those messages in the guise of just seeming like average people saying how great this is. Well, let's also make special note of the fact that all of the congressional sponsors are Democrats. Well, what do you make of that? What do you make of that? There's two things you can make of it. One, it must be bunk if it's only Democrats sponsoring it. Or two, what I make of it is that the Democratic Party is more responsive towards environmental organizations. The Republican Party is more bought up by fossil fuel petrochemical interests. Some Democrats who are sponsors of this that jumped onto my radar because I've heard their names bandied about as promoting environmental causes in other respects are Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat Rhode Island, Jeff Merkley, Democrat Oregon, Ed Markey, Democrat Massachusetts, and Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts. And lastly, why I believe this resolution to be a good thing is because I always look to what are the environmental organizations saying. I look to that because that's their chartered purpose, is protecting our health and the environment. Other organizations, be they independent business interests or what have you, do not have that chartered purpose. So 4 environmental organizations that I have quite a bit of respect for, the 3 of which I've donated to in the past and volunteered for in some cases, are the Sierra Club, Environmental Defense Fund, Natural Resources Defense Council, and the Rocky Mountain Institute. Well, what can you do? What can you do? Because I'm trying to empower you to do. Well, I'll provide you a link beneath the video to a Support This Bill link provided by the Rewire America. And I'll provide you a link to Senate.gov where you can look up and see who your U.S. Senator is and say, you know what, I support this here Electrify America bill or resolution. And until next time, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel. You've clicked that notification bell. You're liking, you're commenting. Hey, let me know what's working for you, what isn't working for you. Where does it get boring? Where does it stay interesting? What do you like what I'm doing as a host? What do you think I could do better? Consider, in fact, if you're going to offer such criticism, even consider donating at Patreon to make this show more of a realistic effort, let's say. And until next time, as always, peace be with you.